this. I like the Watershed just for the fact that when I'm looking behind the bar and it goes, don't forget our Philip Glass brunch films. I mean, that's a very Watershed thing to show a series of films of Philip Glass soundtracks.
Well, it's a very arty place, isn't it? You kind of expect to see lots of students with long hair and, people like you. I think you're at home
people like
here.
me, yeah.
Well, and, I consider myself fairly booky. But I don't know if I'm quite as booky as...
You will be. You will be. These things will happen with age. Yeah.
It comes with age.
You'll realise there's nothing else in life. There's more to life than books, but not much more in the words, obviously, of Morrison.
That you have performed. Oh, are you feeling better, by the way?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those typical things that happens when you're touring, is every now and again you will just spend the night vomiting furiously in some kind of, bizarre hotel, some clean, ultimately sterile box that you're in.
And it was...
I think it's you know what, looking back, the £1 sandwich from Chorley may well have been a mistake, but I don't in any way blame. I'd like to make it clear, Chorley Little Theatre, who are an absolutely delightful theatre. But I think it was just too late to eat that sandwich, and these are the lessons.
And you
constantly
paid.
on tour.
Yeah. But you're all right now.
I think so. We're going to find out. This might turn out to be like a John Waters movie at any moment now. Who knows what will fly out?
But how did the show go in the evening?
I enjoyed it. I mean, we had a very last minute. Basically, my computer wouldn't work, and so the audience were coming in as we were setting up, and it's interesting because doing something like the Festival of Ideas. I mean, I do my shows in lots of different environments. I've done it in kind of Victorian speaking halls, I've done it in chapels, I've done it, in art galleries, as well as theatre. And what I find is that I do change slightly. I don't notice it, but I realise that there is a different approach for each one. So Festival of Ideas, I think I approached it slightly more slowly, getting into it. A lot more kind of Darwin facts and Feynman facts and stuff, and then some of the stupid jokes about mutation, heredity, natural selection, or particle physics. And but it was delightful. I mean, it's one of those things where even if you can be incredibly run down, more often than not, you will still be able to perform. But every now and again, you will go, I shouldn't have done that show, actually. I think I've cancelled 3 shows. As far as I know, in 20 years, or over 20 years, I've cancelled 3 shows. 3 shows where I really thought, I definitely don't think I can actually, for physical reasons, for what may well be dispatched during this show, that it therefore cannot be done. There is no, whatever pills to dry you out, or
it has to be that high, though. It has to be.
Yeah, it has to be. Because I mean, quite often you do find just before you're going to go, I do feel bad, I don't feel very well, and what you're doing is you're creating an alibi. So other comics will walk into a room, and I mean, there's a couple that I know. I've spoken to the theatre, and they go, "Oh, this bloke, he comes in, and he always goes, oh, this isn't the right setup. I can't perform like this." So one thing that comics do quite a lot, and not just comics, all human beings, is we work out our alibi in advance. Why did we fail? Oh, do you know what? Looking back, I did have a bit of a cold. Oh, looking back, I think I had a stone in my shoe. Oh, looking back, it had been a funny old day, actually. All of those things. So I think there's sometimes before you go on, you do set up your excuse.
Well, what you were saying about people that go into a place and kind of say that it's set up wrong, is that a sort of, is it too pretentious to do that, or do you think that's an important part of the whole...
I think it depends. I mean, I'm not very... once I look at a room, I just kind of check the lights are in the right... I mean, I do remember years ago, I think it was with Stuart Lee and Kevin Eldon. I think it was in Birmingham, but it might not have been. We did a little run of gigs, and we did go to one of the student unions where there was a sports screen showing sports and loads of quiz machines and fruit machines, and then the stage. And I think it was initially Stuart who went, you've got to turn those off. You've got to turn those things off. And they went, no, it's all right. People who want to play the fruit machines will play the fruit machines. People who want to watch the football will watch the football. And people who want to watch the comedy will watch the comedy. And you go, oh, no, that doesn't work like that. You can't, you do require for that kind of, spoken word stuff. It does need to be in a room which doesn't have 5 other choices. And so there are things that you learn over time. And there's certain things with seating and stuff. But I'm not one to be overly... I think the performer I'm thinking about is a lovely person, but I think that's his shtick. My shtick is I've got a bit of a cold. His is the seats. I mean, other times you do. I remember playing one gig where 50% of the seats were the wrong way, and you do go, that's not. There is no way. No one in watching a show like that is never going to be enhance
Or if you're sat in sort of, there's round tables, that kind of.
Oh, there's a size
evening.
of table. You know, we don't even have to get into the mysticism of feng shui to say that, yeah, if or feng shui or whatever the hell it is, if I mispronounce it, I apologise, but as it's built on a tissue of lies, I think the mispronunciation of the words doesn't really matter. But yeah, when you go, the tables have got 5 people around them and they're that enormous, so it means that there's loads of different little things that can come into it. And I think that's why sometimes people forget that, where sometimes they will go, oh, someone's made up an excuse for a bad gig, and sometimes you get, it does. I mean, I think students have got a lot better. When I first did the student circuit, and I remember Norwich Art College, whatever it was, really delightful people, but they had 2 desk lamps that they gaffer taped up to a corner, and that was it. That was the lighting. And they were on those arms that desk lamps are on that are kind of wobbling all the time.
Yeah.
But you knew, in some ways, it kind of worked in an art college because it became a happening or a Dadaist event, and so to some extent. But it was, now they have, I think more and more people realise that you have to make it it is about focusing a room. I mean, it's like last night, for instance, I played it slightly differently because the audience were lit. Now, the moment an audience are lit, they are more aware of themselves. And so they can enjoy a show, but there is, and you'll see that, I'm sure there's some psychological test that there's no point in doing because it's a waste of time, but if you are a psychologist and you want to do it. But, as the lighting goes down, the amount you can react changes. Now, whether that also means the amount you would heckle changes, I don't know. I don't know if you're fully lit, whether you want to heckle more because you feel you're in the spotlight, or in the darkness, whether that's where you feel safer to shout to someone.
Well, wasn't the Hawthorne effect that whatever you did, it would cause some response?
Oh, probably. I don't know that. I don't know the Hawthorne.
Well, so if you're factory workers and the lights go up, they will work more. But likewise, if the lights went down, they did more as well. But it was filled with all sorts of problems.
Yeah, that's the trouble once you've got the human mind. Yeah, the ethical things. You're not allowed to electrocute people as much as you used to be.
Well, the thing with psychologists is that they just make it up most of the time, I think.
Well, it is. I mean, I was going to do, at one point, I know this isn't quite psychology, but I was going to do, my next show was going to be about consciousness. And I read about 10 books about consciousness, and they went, no, it's not going to be about consciousness because we just haven't got very far. There's only so many times you can read a book where, yet again, is it a duck? Is it a rabbit? Is it an old lady? Is it, you can't look at the 2 things at the same time. Your body, and you go, there's not much. Most books about consciousness, the first chapter explains how everyone else who's written about a book about consciousness is rubbish and why they're best. And I mean, there are lots of good books about it, but it's kind of, I think that's the human mind, which is actually what I am going to do. The next one will be about human mind and psychology. There are so many variables, and we are. I mean, I love cognitive dissonance. I think that's a fascinating thing to see the way that people justify themselves. And also, I was saying a moment ago, someone tweeted something rude to me, so I tweeted something facetious back. And I'm always interested in the way that you see this on Twitter and you see this under articles in newspapers. Like there was an article about a wonderful comic that I like a great deal. It's a very, very good comic. And because she's famous now, it means that if there's ever an article in a newspaper, 50% of people just write underneath it, she's rubbish, she's not funny. And you go, look, it's not when a human being's going to realise there's a difference between the objective and the subjective, that, to a lot of people, I know I'm not funny. And to other people, I am funny. Now, both those people are correct. The people who do not find me funny are entirely correct. I am not funny. The people that find me funny, I believe they're obviously they're more correct. No, but it's but I know that. But people. Comedy does seem to make people very angry. I remember Natalie Haynes talking about this, and I think it's true that sometimes people hate a certain comic because if everyone's laughing around them and they're not getting it, it feels like you're not part of the tribe. And then you get into the whole thing about I'm going off on a very long lecture here. I apologise. Where were we? We were the psychology. You opened the can of worms of psychology. That's the problem.
Well, I study it, you see. This is But I was wondering whether you buy into the psychometric stuff of, you said about cognitive dissonance. Do you like those kind of terms, or would you say that you're a bit more open and that the human mind can't be quantified in that way?
I think we'd like it not to be quantified in that way. I think there's still, maybe that's the one last bit of magic we can have. We're no longer the centre of the universe. We're no longer not part of the tree of life. We are part of all of that. The human mind, because of its level of mystery, because we haven't got very far. We've done well.
Yeah.
I've read some scientists recently saying we should give up on consciousness. And you go, well, hang on, we haven't been working on it for that long. I do think it'll be a very boring answer. I think when we find out what creates self-consciousness, someone will go, and the answer is, and you go, oh, is that it? And it will be like 42. I mean, that's the great thing about Hitchhiker's Guides. I think, that's kind of one of the great things. Yes, it'll be some number, it'll be some equation. Oh, that's what creates consciousness. So I buy into some of it, but I also know that, we're at a very early stage of it. But when you look at human behaviour, I mean, understanding human behaviour, we can have a greater, every time, whether you see it as, Milgram's experiments I love. I think, what Milgram did there, talking about the banality of evil, talking about how easily led we are, which is the greatest problem. I was doing a thing with Richard Dawkins the other day, and one of the things I was asking is, if we do have a world without religion, if such a thing were possible, does he really imagine that we'll then have a group of free thinking, that everyone will be a free thinker? The truth is, Nietzsche was, when he would talk about the idea of, the Superman, that kind of the Ubermensch stuff, that we do want readers.
Yeah.
There aren't that many people. You look at how difficult it is to choose what you want on a menu, and the fact that, but what are you having? What are you having? Constant fear of us having to make our own decisions. So, yeah, I think we're getting somewhere with understanding ourselves. Whether we'll ever want to is an entirely different. I mean, I see it I'm really astonished at. I was having a huge argument with a journalist the other day at a conference, and I really was amazed at the way that he justified what made no sense to me, because I know that I know I'm wrong about an enormous number of things, and that's a tremendous relief when you realise that you don't know very much. But every time I asked him for evidence, he kind of said that evidence wasn't required, that it didn't matter. And I have got to the point, I think, from doing a lot of science shows, where I do go, that if you can make a decision, an informed decision, with evidence, with these things, that's a very important thing to do. Now, I do know that then we get into the politics of evidence, which evidence you pick, then you have to learn who are the best sources of evidence. It's a very difficult thing, and most of what we do in our lives is instinctual in the first place. But I think, we do spend a lot of time, we create a narrative afterwards.
Yes, no, I see. It was interesting with the Milgram that, I do love Milgram, and I think what he's done is very important, but actually he set out to find what he found.
Yeah.
And I think it does just create another interesting thing, and also, the Zimbardo stuff about how there was another group of psychologists that found the opposite, and that the prisoners, they overcame the guards. So I think when we try and narrow it down, that there are some problems kind of.
Well, it's very difficult with the variables. That's the hardest thing, which is it only takes a very minor detail to totally change the way, the kind of Zimbardo experiments and because I read Lucifer Effect. I mean, Milgram's interesting because you had that with game theory as well, didn't you? You had that with a lot of the work there, which was, it turned out that in different examples you went, oh, they haven't done what we imagined. The ultimate narcissism, egotism of humanity didn't always come through.
But the school of thought saying about how you're trying to take away these variables, how much point there is in doing that, and saying, well, we live with these variables, and this is where we're at. And
but if it gives us more understanding of who we are, even though we know that there are all these things,
but
whether we want to, I mean, this is the trouble. If it gives us more understanding, how many people will it change? I mean,
it's all right. So, your show, The Importance of Being Interested, is this more philosophical than the science?
I don't know. I mean, the main thing I think it's... I mean, I only had 3 weeks between the last show I did and then taking this one out, so I had a very... I mean, my January was me just staring at loads of notes going, how the fuck am I going to turn this into I don't know how I'm going to turn this into a show. I've got 3 weeks. And about 2 days before flying to Belfast to do the first official show, I was still thinking, should I just cancel it? Should I cancel it? Belfast actually was I have to say, the audience there, I used to fear Belfast as a gig, because the first time I ever played there I was booed on. And, that's gone now, because it was just a tremendous, incredible audience to play to. And what happened with the show is that, I was thinking about this last night, it starts off as quite an improvised thing. I have a list, I had 120 sentences, numbered sentences, with different ideas by me. And for a few nights I went out and I saw how many I got through and I saw how they developed. And now I've realised that it actually almost has become a solid... I kind of know what I'm doing. It takes me about a month and I go, actually, I know where it begins, I know where it ends. And I think it's about two things, which is one, 100% correct, 100% right doesn't exist. That everything is about a least wrong version of events. So mutation, heredity, natural selection, Darwin's ideas, Wallace's ideas, and where we've gone with this, it's not perfection. You know, evolution will never create the perfect human being or the perfect anything, but it will produce the least worst thing to survive. In the same way our universe exists because of slight imbalances, matter, antimatter, the slight clumping of material, all of those things. So it's about not the fact that perfection and 100% truth and all those things can't happen, but equally there are different levels of wrong. So if someone justifies their kind of boulder dash theory, whether it's, you know, whatever kind of weird smelling salts, memory of water kind of, you know, ESP thing it is, just because we haven't got 100% knowledge on one side doesn't mean that they're as right. So it's about different levels of wrong. And the other side of it is about the fact that human beings, one of the things that we have is a different potential to most animals, which is by having a human mind, we can... It sounds very dry, doesn't it? But by having a human mind, we can do things. We can change the way our world is. I mean, that's the thing, is that we don't live within the world, we change the world. And that has, of course, plus sides and downsides. So a lot of it's about the fact that not to use your mind is you are basically rejecting the agony your mother went through for you to have that great big skull with a great big brain in it. And if you don't use your head, then I consider that a very, very rude gesture to your mother who gave you birth.
So is it partly, you know, we're not animals in that sense? We're still
animals. It's just we've got
obviously
a different potential.
Yes.
We've got a different, you know, and of course there are, you know, we can't say this about every animal. There are, as we see, different levels of self-consciousness, all manner of things. But because we have this ability to look, examine, be inquisitive, because we have, you know, the way that we are inquisitive. And this is true again, obviously, of some other species as well. But not to use it, not to be excited by the world, because we are constantly bombarded by, you know, all of the different images. I mean, in this room alone, you think of the amount of writing that is around here. You think of the amount of structure that's around here. You look at the lighting. You look at the films that are available there. All of those things. We've now got so much bombarded that we notice nothing. So when people first saw film of a train coming at them and those kind of things, it was wow. When people first had easy access to clean water, imagine what that felt like, just to go, look, we just got clean water. When you can actually sit comfortably in the toilet, not shiver, all of these things. Now we've got them all, and we're not noticing them. We just think they've always been there. Now you only have to go back 100 years to look at, you know, what was killing people and what age they were dying and the risks of childbirth and all of those things to go, we live in a very privileged position. It is tremendous to live in the 21st century now. We're living better than most human beings throughout the history of civilization and before that. So don't be blasé. That's what I get annoyed is I do think I kind of talk in the show about the fact that, you know, people are stressed when they don't need to be stressed. People feel they're victims when they're not really victims. People are offended when, do you know what, do you really care? Does it matter? Does it you know, that sometimes offence, you can take offence, but overall, how much does it matter? Have you really been? And we turn it on ourselves all the time. I made some flippant remark about diet books on Twitter, and I had a number of, you don't know what it's like trying to lose weight, blah blah blah. I said, oh no, I'm not attacking people who are trying to lose weight. I'm attacking what I see as an industry which is filled with nonsense and which is designed to. And then so after I got attacked by the dieters, I said, look, if I attacked a homeopathic remedy for psoriasis, I'm not attacking people with psoriasis. I'm attacking the people who are using their illness to gain money for them. Then I got loads of people with psoriasis going, we're not the same as dieters, but you know. So
it's the curse of Twitter.
Yeah, and it's in the same way as I know a few of us have talked about this in the past, but you know, if you make any comment about religion, everyone always, you know, what about the Muslims? And you go, look, it's not always equal. I mean, I noticed someone said that recently when Anne Widdecombe did her programme about religious jokes, which I was asked to do, and made yet again one of my excellent decisions not to. And I, you know, when she says, you know, why are they doing jokes about this and not about that? And someone said, yeah, do you know what? If there were jokes about Muslims and there were jokes about, and you know, in fact there are anyway, but you know, if there was constant parity, if every time we stood on stage and went, there we go, that was my joke there about former Archbishop of Canterbury George Carey, and now my next joke is about an imam. So, you know, there's constant balance. They wouldn't be happy. They want to. Yeah. It's actually about censorship.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And I think, I think people are slowly getting that now. The whole kind of, we don't live in a Muslim society, why? That's not an argument anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
So where do we go with that? That was sorry. Yet again, I didn't answer your question. I answered some other questions that must have been in my head. We were talking about psychology. We were talking about cognitive dissonance. Let's go back. What's my show about? Yeah. So there we are.
So that's
it is
what your
about.
show's
It is kind of. It was a little blog post that I wrote when I was on a train from Newton Abbot up to London. There's a wonderful stretch of from Newton Abbot to Exeter. You're right on the coast. It's one of those beautiful bits. A little bit like leaving from Aberdeen. You have similar moments where that sometimes on a really stormy day the waves actually kind of hit the windows, and I was looking down and just loads of kids and adults just going along the beach looking at seashells, and that's kind of part of was the inspiration, which was all of these simple things, these very simple things, to wander down a beach and just look at shells and stuff, and which I do with my son obviously, and we go off and we have a lot of adventures. It's as if everything has to be a bigger, more exciting, costlier thing. To have fun must cost you money. So if it's free, it can't be any good. And that's another of the things that it's about, which I hope it's kind of a little bit like my last show, but more so. I think it has an optimism to it. The downside is it means I have to be optimistic for 2 hours a night, and that means that I can't be optimistic for the other 22 hours of the day. It's very, very concentrated optimism.
So, but that message that you have, is that the most important thing than the jokes? Is that kind of something that's changed?
I want it to be an entertainment. I mean, I want people to be entertained. I mean, I think this current show is the best one that I've done, but when it doesn't work, because it changes a great deal in terms of audience reaction, which is some nights people will be laughing all the way through. And some nights it's a slow build, and then sometimes on what seems like the quieter nights, I actually get the most enthusiastic response afterwards. People coming up to me and people writing to me. So people, I think, because it's not as stand-uppy as I used to be, people are not entirely certain. As you know, people like to know when to laugh. You can watch some of the old, old Catskills comics, and indeed any comic who has a rhythm of gag, of set-up, punchline, you will see that the audience eventually get into that rhythm, and just that it becomes almost Pavlovian. It becomes, they laugh. There's a famous story of Bob Hope, which is he was doing he did a couple of jokes about motels back in the 50s. No one in the UK apparently knew what a motel was, but they laughed anyway at the motel jokes. And afterwards, one of the writers said, "Oh, what did you think?" And they said, "We didn't really know what they were, but we knew it was Bob Hope, so we laughed." So, there is a bit where when you walk into an environment and you have an expectation, like last night, Festival of Ideas, I know that some of the audience, it was a slightly older audience, a lot of them, than I normally play to, but it is quite a mixed group that I play to generally. But I could see from the beginning, because the lights were up, that they were going, I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be. I know this is the guy who does that Radio 4 thing. I know it's going to be a little bit about Charles Darwin, a little bit about Richard Feynman, but they weren't what you would call a stand-up audience. Whereas the people at the back, who've probably been to more of my shows, they knew that I did a kind of stand-up thing as well. So expectation comes into it a lot. But my main thing really is I want to do 2-hour shows that are entertaining, people enjoy, that may not always have big laughs, but which people are always. I was telling someone the other day. A scientist was asking me about. He said, "I think I did too long." I said, "You didn't." I said, I said, "You can always tell when you're doing too long in the audience. It is the coughing thing. The coughing syndrome is the simplest thing. That if one person coughs, you can go, that's okay, it's winter, someone's going to cough. If immediately that causes another person to cough, and then another person, and then it goes round, you know that they're losing concentration a little bit, and you think, time to call an interval." So that's, I'm still learning a great deal. I still come off stage and I will, put on my hair shirt, wrap myself in barbed wire, and kind of, just think that wasn't good enough. And sometimes I find out that I was wrong, that they, the years and years that I was on the comedy circuit mean that you do go, oh, I need another laugh there. And sometimes you think, no, I don't. This is a change. I increasingly become. I think this tour's kind of called something an unhinged lecture or something like that. And so I'm trying to again not even put the terminology in there. But what I want is I want people to be enthusiastic and excited about their, what I believe may well be finite existence.
Thank you so much.
Is that it?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Shorter than last time, wasn't it?
Well,
it was nonsense, wasn't it?
Well, last time we were recording for 50 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it was a long one, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they put that thing.
Let's
on
do
YouTube
it again.
now.
Let's do it again. I'll do much more concise answers because, I've had a lot of coffee now, and it means that what happens is, because this is one of the problems with the show actually. in fact always has been with me, is I have got about 5 voices in my head that are going off and saying, and one of the hardest things is, because this show at one point was 4 hours long by accident, I'm constantly aware that I want to get through a certain amount of material, there are certain ideas I have to get to, and I don't want the audience there too long. I don't want them to get impatient. So half of my work on stage, which the audience only see occasionally, is actually all the voice in my head going, no, you haven't got time. And I used to love improvising, really going off on long tangents. Right? So, and now no, don't do that. No, there's no time to do that. Just keep talking about the thing that's up on the screen. Talk about Charles Darwin, talk about barnacles. Just remember, keep talking about barnacles. Yeah, but what about that? No. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. But then again...
So you're more focused now? You're kind of...
Well... Yeah, in a desperate... I mean, every now and again it leaks out, and I have to, the inner monologue has to become vocal because it just can't keep it all in. But it's the thing is that there's a lovely line by Carl Sagan, who obviously is someone I admire a great deal as a communicator of science. Someone asked him once about, a science communicator, what drove him on, and he said, when you're in love, you want to tell the whole world. And I thought it's a lovely way of putting it, which is, once I really got back into kind of some of these ideas and some of the stuff that I read about, and I just think it is. I might have said this in the last interview, which is, when you start going out with someone, I'm going to now date myself and show how old I am. You give them a compilation tape. It was a tape, right? And you go, I like this music. This music's brilliant. I want you to like this music. It's really, really good. Please listen. It's the Pixies, and it's this, and it's that, and it's fantastic. It's and you will know us by the Trail of the Dead. Like them. And I think of the number of, my wife. The number of in a box of tapes that I gave her when we first started going out with each other. And now that to me is the same thing as what I do, which is I go, I've been reading this thing, and you should read it too. Please read it. It's really brilliant. Charles Darwin writes beautifully. He talks about the chaos of delight. You can have a chaos. And so that's kind of what it becomes. And I do realise it changes me because it means that, the cynicism that can frequently be required to be in a dressing room of a stand-up club has been not entirely erased. Don't worry. There's still a little bit of cynicism, but predominantly scepticism.
But there's loads of ideas and things like that. I think that's the reason a lot of people come. And yeah, if you lost that completely, I think that would.
I wouldn't. No, it's never. Every single time. I mean, at the moment, the next one not the next one, because the next one's going to be about the. I wish I could do 5 shows a year. This is the thing. Some people have said, "Will you ever do the 4-hour version of this?" And I'm wondering if I can find 5 weird venues. It will almost become a kind of a hideous Andy Warhol art event instead. But I might see if a few places will do the 4-hour version, and I'll dig out all the notes and do the full 4-hour version. But yeah, there's the next one that after the human mind, or not just the human mind, right? Then I thought about that whole difference between men and women, blah blah blah, and I thought I'll do one about the differences between men and women, but rather the difference, I'll do it between the difference between male and female in living creatures. So I'll take what is seen as a hack idea, and also it's quite an interesting one because in a lot of the natural world, the female is dominant. And the male is this little rubbishy thing, and of course somehow in the human world, males have managed through force, but in the end we are these weedy things with the weedy Y chromosome. I mean, I love the fact. You read one fact, you think that's the start of it. I was reading in a Steve Jones book about men used to believe that basically sperm was just a little homunculus, and all a woman was a holding area. She was a big barn. So you would put your homunculus in there, and then it would grow inside the woman because you had other things to do. And then so it was like all these different philosophical ways and cold scientific ways of somehow demoting the importance of women. And I thought for the time that we live in now, to do something which ultimately is about, we have to accept male. No, we're reasonably rubbish. And so I don't know when I will. I've got 7 shows that I want to do currently in my list, so that gets us up to about 2015, I think.
Well, you used to do kind of all of them at once at Edinburgh, didn't you? But have you sort of?
I would still do that. It's just that now it's school holidays, and I have a choice. I have a choice between not getting to the age of 60 and going, I wish I'd spend more time with my son, or getting to the age of 60 and going, let's have another adventure. So that's why I can't do Edinburgh anymore. I would keep doing. I think when I did 4 a day, with extra shows added as well, so averaged out, I think I averaged 6 shows a day, and I don't think I could do that again. I think that really was a one-off run, because you do, though I enjoyed it, you do get to a point of near. I mean, I remember getting to the final show, and sometimes your adrenaline just drops because you know your body knows that it's nearly over. And I remember just sitting in the corner, damp with sweat from the previous show, the t-shirt still drying on me from the previous show, to the final hour, and just going, I don't know if I can do it. And then actually doing most of it, kind of actually lying on the stage. I had this little bit where I would drop down and kind of roll into a little ball for a bit. And then I didn't know if I could get back up again because I started to feel snoozy. So yeah, I think the next time I do Edinburgh, I'll do 3 shows a day.
Okay. Well, I think with that year, I saw you in the Cow at the South Bank, and you were just preparing for it all. But it was great because you had so many ideas.
Oh, I remember, yeah.
Scatting around.
Stack of postcards. I've got to go and buy some new postcards. That's how I do. That's how I used to do the shows. And I've got about now 2,000 postcards, Penguin classic postcards, weird postcards of authors, science fiction notes. Sometimes I'll dig them out and I go, oh, I never did that. But yeah, there are just so many. It's the thing of reading. It's the joy, that once you start reading, and if you choose well, or even if you choose badly, it just opens things up, and it does mean that when you look out of windows and you look at the world, everything becomes more vivid.
And you want to play on that. Well, I think we've got 2. I think we've got the extended version.
Yeah, second
we've got
that made some sense. I forget about these things.
Thank you very much.
That's all right.
Cheers.
It's a lovely flapjack.
Oh, good.